previous video, I encouraged you to save an emergency fund of anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 or more depending on your situation. But if you currently have any existing debt, then you really want to focus your financial efforts on getting rid of that debt before you save this large amount of money in your emergency fund. Otherwise, that debt's just going to sit there and charge you interest and heartache and eat up monthly payments. But in the meantime, while you're knocking out that debt, you still want some money put away in savings. And we call this sort of a mini emergency fund. And this is actually the order that Dave Ramsey suggests in his baby steps, where baby step 1 is to save a mini emergency fund. Baby step 2 is to knock out any debt that you have before coming back to baby step 3 of your emergency fund and getting that fully funded. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, welcome. My name is Zachary Schleck, your personal finance coach, where my main goal is to help you win with money by gaining control of your personal finances. In this video, we're going to look at why this order works, why you don't necessarily want a fully funded emergency fund if you still have existing debt, and why a mini emergency fund will get you by in the meantime. And then we'll also look at how much you actually want in this mini emergency fund. Dave Ramsey suggests $1,000, which I think works for a lot of people, but I also don't think it's realistic for every situation. So we'll take a look at how much you actually need in your mini emergency fund. Stay tuned. Having a fully funded emergency fund is a big financial milestone to hit because it acts as a buffer between you and accruing any high interest debt, whether that's credit cards or loans or asking to borrow from friends or family. But what happens if you currently have debt? If the goal is to keep debt away from you, but currently you have some sitting in your lap, then you need to use any money that you already have saved, as well as money that you would be putting towards fully funding that emergency fund, and put it towards your current debt. Once the existing debt is gone, then you can work on getting your emergency fund up to the full amount. But while you're working on paying off that existing debt, you still need some buffer between accruing even more debt and just creating a cycle of adding more and more high interest debt to your existing debt as emergencies pop up, which they tend to do more often when you don't have that emergency fund acting as a buffer. And what this looks like is a mini emergency fund. And let me tell you, if you want to start getting on track financially, then saving this mini emergency fund is the first step. So the next question is, how much should you have saved in this mini emergency fund? And this is one of very few things that I disagree with Dave on, where he says that baby step 1 should just be $1,000. And that's a good number because it's nice and even, and most importantly, almost anybody can save $1,000 very quickly if you had to. And that's really the key to baby step 1 is speed, and getting through it as quickly as you can to get on to baby step 2. But what if $1,000 isn't enough for baby step 1? I think it might be enough if you're single and you don't have kids and you rent, but what if you're a family of 5 who owns a home? And also, according to a Bankrate survey, the average unexpected emergency expense is around $3,500. So personally, I think a good amount for a mini emergency fund is the equivalent of 1 month's fully funded emergency fund rounded down. And I say rounded down just to stick with the idea of making baby step 1 as fast as possible. And what do I mean by 1 month's fully funded emergency fund? Well, in my last video, I went into depth on the calculation for whether you need 3 months, 6 months, or more in your fully funded emergency fund, and how to calculate 1 month's worth of necessary expenses. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go back and watch that video to see more in-depth details and calculations for this. So if your fully funded emergency fund is 3 months of $2,000 a month, or $6,000, then somewhere in the $1,000 to $2,000 range should be plenty for a mini emergency fund. So maybe Dave's statement of $1,000 would be enough. But if your fully funded emergency fund is 6 months or maybe more of $3,500 a month for $21,000, then I don't think $1,000 is enough for a mini emergency fund. And you should probably aim for around the $3,000 mark in your mini emergency fund to tide you over while paying down debt and being able to save the full $21,000. Now, like I said before, but I'll emphasize it again just because it's so important, the key to baby step 1 is speed and getting this mini emergency fund saved as quickly as possible to get on to baby step 2 of paying off your debt. Really, it should take 3 months maximum to save this mini emergency fund, but ideally only 1 to 2 months. So if that means that your goal for a mini emergency fund is $4,000, but you can only save $2,500 in that time frame, then that's fine. Just save the $2,500 and then get on to baby step 2. The thing is, you don't actually want to be completely comfortable at this stage of the game financially. Being uncomfortable will sort of light a fire under your butt to get through baby step 3 of paying off debt as quickly as possible before getting to baby step 3 and finally being able to fully fund your emergency fund. Going back to my previous example of having $21,000 in a fully funded emergency fund, that's a very comfortable number to have sitting in savings tucked away if you ever need it. And in comparison, only having $3,000 in a mini emergency fund almost seems like nothing. But it should be at least enough, if not more than enough, to cover any one-off emergencies that might pop up. So again, to figure out how much you should have saved in a mini emergency fund for your situation, I would encourage you to go back and watch my previous video where I talk about how much you should actually have saved in a fully funded emergency fund, and then just take 1 month of that and use that as your mini emergency fund. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments down below. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you on the next video.